Good morning. I am Matthew Gonnering, the CEO of Widen. We are a software company headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin. We're helping some of the most influential brands in the world to organize their marketing and product content. I am delighted to be with you today. Thank you especially to Tracy and the entire WorldBlu team for the opportunity to share. Over the course of a few short weeks, it might have felt like your freedom was being chipped away at. Progressively, week by week, you were not allowed to do more and more things in the interest of human safety. In a matter of weeks, we went from don't travel to these countries to don't leave your house. And so, how is a business supposed to operate in these conditions? In 1946, Viktor Frankl, the author of Man's Search for Meaning, he gave us some insight regarding how to navigate the conditions that surround us today. And Frankl had said, to be sure, a human being is a finite thing and his freedom is restricted. It is not freedom from conditions, but it is freedom to take a stand toward the conditions. Now we've got some awesome examples of people taking a stand toward the conditions that I'm going to share with you. But first, let me tell you about what I was thinking as the CEO. What's going on in my head? The first thing is you see this blurry thing off in the distance. You don't really know what it is. You don't know the size of it. You don't know how fast it's coming at you. You can't see how big its teeth are or its claws are. You don't know how many of them there are. And the first thought is, I can take this thing. Whatever it is, I can take it. I don't know how exactly, but I do need some weapons in this fight. And I drew 5 weapons. Let me go through each of these with you. My first weapon was confidence. My skills are ready for the challenge. I've led through a recession and a transformation before. I can surely do this thing. But then what gives me so much confidence? The people with whom I choose to surround myself. The best people on the planet work at Widen, and we've taken care of them through the years. They are ready to rise to the occasion. We've also taken care of our customers, and we've done this for 72 years. We've built great relationships to help our customers accomplish their mission, and they've never been a transaction for us. That's built incredible loyalty over time. We also don't abuse our suppliers or our vendors. We've got great partnerships. We pay on time. We don't threaten them when they screw up. We have people that we can count on in our network. So those are the things that give me so much confidence. Another weapon that I drew on was calm. If I freak out, everybody else freaks out. So don't freak out. I tell my kids this all the time. Maintain your composure. As a leader, if you lose control, you'll lose the confidence that your employees have in you, and that's going to cause them to worry about more things than just the situation itself. And that worry will be, are they working for the right organization? And so how do you maintain the calm? So remember, you have the first weapon, confidence. You got this. Second thing to maintain the calm is I sought information from authoritative sources. So as we are in the battle of a pandemic, an infodemic is emerging right alongside of it. So I found some great leadership advice from management consulting firms. I narrowed in on original sources for health information. As much as I appreciate the freedom of the press, I was not interested in editorial commentary, kind of like Joe Friday On Dragnet, all we want are the facts, ma'am. So I stuck with what I interpreted as trusted government health sources, all the way from the global level into local communities. Another thing to maintain the calm is that I organized the team because I needed help. I asked a few very reliable, influential, meticulously detailed, matter of fact people to join a response team to help me navigate a human safety and an economic impact. And so this team came together, and that was another thing that I did to maintain the calm. In addition, we made sure that we communicated and communicate lots. For me, the choice was simple. Either I communicate what's going on or I let people's imagination take over. So I opted for the former. Our response team published information 3 times a week for the first 8 weeks. Then we switched to twice a week. Then we switched to once a week. So we addressed everything from customer flight risk activity to emotional well-being, making sure that people didn't feel alone. So those are a few things that I think about when I think about the calm. The third weapon was clarity. There is enough confusion out there, and I wanted to minimize any confusion in our communications. A few things that we did to bring clarity, or so I thought, was to tell it like it is. So in our early communications, one message in particular I wrote as we were transitioning into our work from home environment was, "You're not welcome here." And someone had mentioned that sounded a little harsh. I just asked if it was clear, and they agreed that it was. Because the only thing I was seeking early on was clarity. No matter how it sounded, I just needed it unmistakably clear that people knew what to do with the information. The second thing that was part of clarity was talking about expense reductions. So as our projected growth was being impacted, one of our scenarios came to fruition. And so I made the decision to reduce 9 areas of expenses and told people that number 10 did involve layoffs. The only thing I knew to do in this situation was to make people aware that it was an action we would take if needed, but other areas were being reduced first. And as the months unfolded, we did end up taking that action. Another thing I was thinking about in terms of clarity was that the external circumstances made it incredibly difficult. There were points in our all company meetings where I would communicate a message, but then I'd put so many variables to it that I probably created more confusion. And so it was difficult to keep track of what was going on and then interpret that for others to be as clear as possible. The fourth weapon was connection. I know many use the term social distancing. Clearly that's not right. It's the physical distancing you desire. So socially, leaders need to be more connected than ever before. The way that I maintain some of these connections, one of which was the team that I lead. Prior to this event, the executive team was going through a variety of team building sessions, and going through those team building sessions in the work from home environment, I believe drew us closer. We were already working through team charters. We were already revisiting some strategic decisions. And so both of those were some major team activities. And I felt like our teamwork and our connection strengthened because we worked through other major events. Another thing about the connections is that the external connections became of critical importance. leaders in other industries across the world, connections with other CEOs, community leaders, other WorldBlu organizations. Every CEO I hang out with takes great responsibility for their role, and they do the best to weather the storm. And so that connection was very meaningful throughout this and still is today. Another thing that uh, is related to connections is something that was something I had to give up, um, because our in-office setup is wide open space. I sit in the open space. I socialize with lots of people throughout the week, and I could not keep up with those connections in addition to the increased responsibilities elsewhere. So my communications with people who were not my direct reports shifted to much more of a broadcast style. The fifth weapon, last weapon in this fight, was surrender. There was one question spinning in my head the entire time. Who exactly are we surrendering to in all of this? There were so many power grabs that it was difficult to tell whether governments were acting in the interest of human safety or just wanting to exert power. Are we following leaders motivated by egocentricity or the common good? Some of you probably said, Jesus Christ, what the hell is going on around here? I started the same way. I said, Jesus Christ, I need you now. I surrender to you my thoughts, my anxieties, my worries, my pain, my suffering, distress, confusion, temptation, desire. You take these so that I can focus on your will and not my own. My faith strengthened me as a leader during this time. And I look to the saints for guidance. And one example is St. Catherine of Bologna. After her death in 1463, St. Catherine shared some very sage advice to the Poor Clare nuns. And it was like she was talking to me. She said, to believe firmly that one could never do anything good by oneself. And then she goes on to cite John 15:5, without me, you can do nothing. Amen, sister. In this surrender, I am free to navigate the best path forward. I am free to help people reach their potential more fully and more easily. So I continue to use these 5 weapons: confidence, calm, clarity, connection, and surrender to take a stand toward the conditions. And many others at Widen decided to take a stand as well. So I'm going to share examples of some activities, people, how they decided to rise above all this noise to help others. And I frame these across a few principles of organizational democracy to share how the people within a freedom-centered organization respond to a crisis. The first principle I'll reference is listening and dialogue. As we were transitioning into a remote work environment, we communicated reasons why and also published frequently asked questions. We were very responsive to employee questions, organizing, distributing them for everyone to read. One of the best statements from those exchanges was an employee who was questioning if we were contributing to the panic. They said, while I greatly appreciate the care and concern that you have for the safety of all of us, my concern is that we are making the entire situation worse by overinflating the issues and contributing to the panic that exists as a result of the virus. We talk about the economic impact this will have, and emails like this make me think that we are contributing to the economic impact because of these measures. But what I loved about it was someone was taking a stand toward the conditions. And one of my favorite things that happened early on in our transition was someone made a choice to stay connected through all of us, to keep us connected uh, in a lighthearted way. Julia organized an internal communication channel called Quarantine Life, originally intended to be for 2 weeks, has been a source of connection throughout all of this. And we have people sharing not only challenges that they're navigating, but there's also some comedic relief that takes place. So Julia, rock star throughout all of this, she also converted our kudos board into a virtual setting. Our kudos board is a wall of recognition. Individuals give each other kudos by writing their name on a card and then the reason why you are giving them kudos. We collectively benefit from the individual recognition because when we get 50 kudos, we buy lunch for the whole company. Julia set forth the virtual version of the kudos board as a jam board. And then Heather and Sarah stepped in to figure out how we were going to buy lunch for the whole company when everybody's at home and support the local restaurants who were under great distress early on. And so they set up corporate accounts and we hit 50 kudos. We bought lunch for 160 employees and their family supporting those local restaurants. And these are a few of the shares across the company of pictures from the kudos lunch. A big part of our physical work environment is the opportunities that we provide to people with abilities that are different than our own. People with cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, other challenges contribute to the Widen culture just like everybody else. So in our work from home setting, the work options are limited. And while we continue to support their financial needs by continuing their pay, we are underserving their desire to work, a desire all of us have. Then Heather steps forward and says, I have an idea. What if what Heather outlined was a way to enable Christina to work at home while also helping to advance her reading skills and support the parents who have small children at home with a variety of activities. So Christina's Corner was a 30-minute meeting that involved storytelling, show and tell, singing songs. It took place for about a 5-week period. In fact, I was in one of those sessions. Christina led my kids and I, along with several others, in the Hokey Pokey. As everyone was already aware, parents working and having kids attending school in the same house has created some pretty significant challenges, especially parents who could, with small children, who could care less about your productivity. So we encouraged employees to be parents first, to find their productivity time wherever they could get it. Our VP of Marketing, Jake Athey, he was a parent and an industry advisor as he even hosted a webinar with his daughter. In another practice of a principle, in particular decentralization, we left it up to the individuals and the teams to be flexible with their work hours, knowing that this was an inescapable challenge, really. We trusted that the people would do the best that they could because we value and practice accountability because it's represented in our value statements. Do what you say you will. Be accountable to yourself, your team, our customers, and our world. Accountability to our world also reached a whole new level. And again, we had a challenge uh, about an action that we took early on. Our local community was raising emergency funds for families who would greatly suffer from job loss and having kids at home. So the families would no longer be able to put food on their table. So we provided a donation to this fund. But before we did, someone questioned if we were going to cut expenses and lay people off. Was it really a good idea to give away this much money? It was a great question. And it's a big one. Uh, and in a way, it's to whom is a business accountable? Customers, employees, shareholders, suppliers, the community. Uh, that great juggling act of business trying to serve a broad range of stakeholders simultaneously. So we made the decision that a sudden and urgent community need of this magnitude required an intervention, and realizing that we are only as good as the community that surrounds us. So in the WorldBlu community, this is referred to as Ubuntu. You can only be at your best when I'm at my best, and I can only be at my best when you are at your best. Another person at Widen rose to the occasion to bring out the best in others with our business continuity plans. Our VP of Product Development, Deanna Ballou, she organized reporting across the organization for critical areas with check-ins from each leader. And this started 3 times a week. It was an incredible effort demonstrating collaboration and high accountability in crisis mode. As I reflect on my own mindset during this, the approach our people are taking, what continues to transpire, I go back to Frankl's expression of freedom. It is not freedom from conditions, but it is freedom to take a stand toward the conditions. When we do take a stand, to whom are we responsible? Frankl gives us more advice by saying, it is therefore up to the patient to decide whether he should interpret his life task as being responsible to society or to his own conscience. There's a reason that freedom-centered companies outperform their peers in recessionary times. They leverage their freedom to take a stand toward the conditions and create win-win-win-win experiences for themselves, their team, their company, and their community. So the question I ask you is, what stand will you take? Thank you for your time and attention. You can reach me at matthewg@widen.com.